There is a certain heaviness that settles upon us, a subtle but pervasive weight that we often forget exists until it presses down on our shoulders. It is not always a sharp pain. Often it manifests as a dull ache, a low hum beneath the surface of our daily thoughts, the residue of experiences we have lived, and sometimes left unresolved. We carry within us unfinished stories. These are the narratives that never reached their conclusion, the words left unspoken, the opportunities missed, the hurts sustained that remain tightly coiled inside our hearts like a knot of old thread. These stories are not just memories. They are energies. They attach themselves to us, clinging to our present moment, draining the vitality we need to live fully. We carry them as if they were physical objects, heavy stones tucked into our pockets, or shadows that follow us into every room. The weight of these unfinished narratives is real. It limits our breath, constricts our capacity for joy, and whispers doubt into the quiet spaces where peace should reside. We spend so much mental energy trying to hold on to the pain, trying to relitigate the events, searching desperately for a way to make sense of what was broken or what was lost. This constant internal wrestling is exhausting. It pulls us away from the simple act of being present, pulling our focus into the past, where time stands still and regret seems eternal. We become trapped in the loop of what if and if only, allowing these unresolved stories to dictate our emotional landscape. But the truth we explore here is that while we cannot change the events that have already occurred, we can change the way we carry them. We can choose to acknowledge the weight without letting it define our future. To begin the journey toward lightness, we must understand the anatomy of this resistance, the natural human impulse to cling to the story, to hold tight to the pain as if it were a shield. This resistance is not a moral failing. It is simply how the mind defaults to survival when faced with loss or disappointment. It is the fear that if we let go, we will lose something essential, or that letting go means admitting defeat. But there is a path away from this grip. The realization of forgiveness is not about excusing the past or minimizing the pain. It is fundamentally an act of liberation for ourselves. Forgiveness is not a magical erasure of what happened. Rather, it is the conscious decision to release the energy that binds us to suffering. It is acknowledging that the story has reached its end, even if we did not write the final chapter as we wish. It is recognizing that holding onto the grievance only keeps the wound fresh and open. When we choose forgiveness, we are not forgiving the other person. We are forgiving ourselves. We are releasing the responsibility of carrying that heavy weight indefinitely. This release is the first step toward reclaiming our inner space. Imagine taking a heavy backpack full of stones. You don't need to throw the stones away immediately, but you can decide to set them down. To let go of the story is to allow the emotional energy trapped within it to flow out, transforming stagnant sorrow into open possibility. This process requires gentleness. It demands that we stop fighting the memory and instead cultivate a space for acceptance. We move from judging the past to gently observing it, recognizing that it was a part of our journey, however difficult. This is not passive resignation. It is an active, compassionate turning inward. By practicing gentle acceptance, we allow the wounded parts of ourselves to soften, allowing us to perceive the present moment with greater clarity and less friction. As we move forward, we will learn how to cultivate this inner space, a quiet sanctuary where the weight of yesterday no longer dictates the rhythm of today. This is the work of creating room for peace, a stillness that is not found by silencing the world around us, but by settling the turbulence within. It is in this stillness, born from the gentle practice of letting go, that we discover the profound and enduring power of true inner freedom. We have begun the work of setting down the weight of yesterday, allowing that emotional energy to flow out. But as we make space, there is often an immediate friction, a subtle resistance that arises against this gentle process. This resistance is not a failure. It is simply the natural response of a mind accustomed to holding tightly. It is the internal mechanism fighting against the very release we are attempting to achieve. Think of resistance as the familiar tension in your muscles when you try to stretch beyond their comfort zone. You know instinctively that there is something heavy there, and the urge is to pull back, to hold on to the known discomfort rather than embracing the unknown possibility of ease. In our spiritual journey, this internal friction is the anatomy of resistance. It is the complex interplay between the story we carry and the freedom we seek. This resistance manifests in many ways. It might show up as a sudden tightening in the chest when you try to recall a memory. It might be an anxious loop that spins when you attempt to sit quietly, or it could be the stubborn insistence of old habits that refuse to break, even when you consciously desire change. The mind, accustomed to defining itself by past experiences, resists the act of letting go because releasing those memories feels like losing a piece of identity, a safety net we unconsciously rely upon. The resistance is rooted in fear. We resist change because change introduces uncertainty. We hold on to pain because it feels familiar, even if it is painful. The mind attempts to keep us safe by clinging to the narrative, the story of what happened and why it hurts, as a protective strategy against the vulnerability of simply existing in the present moment. Resistance is the mind's attempt to maintain control over an emotional landscape that has become turbulent. To move beyond this resistance, we must first recognize it not as an obstacle to be crushed, but as information to be observed. When you feel that familiar friction arise, pause. Instead of reacting to the feeling with judgment or immediate struggle, simply notice it. Observe where in your body the tension resides. See the story that is pushing back, the fear of what might happen if we let go, and gently acknowledge its presence without engaging in the argument. This awareness is the first step toward dissolving resistance. When we stop fighting the memory and instead simply observe the feeling, we create a small, sacred space between the stimulus and our reaction. We are no longer entangled in the automatic loop of struggle. We become the quiet witness to the struggle itself. This shift allows us to move from being victims of our emotions to observers of them. Resistance is not something to be eliminated instantly. It is something to be softened gradually, with persistent kindness. It requires patience. Just as you cannot force a frozen object to melt immediately, we must allow the emotional energy trapped within this resistance to slowly dissipate through gentle attention. By meeting resistance with calm curiosity rather than immediate opposition, we begin to dissolve its power. This soft observation opens the door for the next stage, cultivating the inner space where true stillness can finally settle. We have observed that resistance is not something to be eliminated instantly, but something we can soften gradually with persistent kindness. We learned that by meeting that resistance with calm curiosity, we begin to dissolve its power. This soft observation opens the door for the next stage, cultivating the inner space where true stillness can finally settle. Now, we turn our attention to the heart of this process, the nature of forgiveness as a profound release. Forgiveness is not some grand gesture aimed at the other person. It is fundamentally an internal act of liberation directed solely toward ourselves. It is the conscious decision to stop carrying a weight that was never meant for us to hold. Think of the emotions we carry, the hurt, the anger, the disappointment, as heavy stones tucked deep within our chest. These stones are not simply memories. They are stored energetic charges, constantly demanding attention and draining our vital energy. When we hold on to past hurts, we are essentially tethering ourselves to those events, allowing them to continue to dictate our current mood and consume our present capacity for peace. Forgiveness is the gentle act of setting those stones down. It is acknowledging the pain that was inflicted, recognizing the injustice, but choosing not to allow that pain to define our future. It means releasing the grip of resentment, that tight, painful cord we use to keep the past alive and active within us. This release does not erase the memory. It simply changes our relationship with it. The story is still there, but we stop allowing it to be the master of our present moment. When we forgive, we are not excusing the behavior, nor are we pretending that the pain didn't happen. Instead, we are reclaiming our own energy. By letting go of the need for retribution or endless emotional holding, we free up an immense amount of mental and emotional bandwidth. Imagine a vessel that was clogged with stagnant water. Forgiveness is the act of opening the sluice gates, allowing fresh, clear streams of life force to flow freely. This process restores the depleted energy. When we stop fighting against the past, we stop expending energy in internal conflict. That stored energy, the tension held by the resistance, is no longer locked up in a cycle of suffering. It flows out, and in its place there is space. This liberated space is where true stillness resides. This release requires tremendous patience and self-compassion. There will be moments when the old emotions try to resurface, like shadows crossing the floor. That is perfectly natural. The goal is not to suppress the feeling, but to observe it with kindness, allowing it to pass through us without clinging. We are practicing the art of letting go, one breath, one moment at a time. By embracing this release, we allow our mind to settle. We move out of the frantic effort of trying to control what has already happened and step into the quiet reality of the now. This is how we cultivate inner space, by transforming emotional burdens into gentle releases. Allow yourself the grace to forgive, and in that act, you begin to find the deep, restorative peace that was always waiting within you. Rest now. We have learned that forgiveness allows us to release the stored energy held by past conflicts. We have seen how resistance drains our life force, locking us into cycles of pain and tension. Now, we turn inward to explore the practice of cultivating inner space, that profound stillness that exists not outside of experience, but within the very architecture of our awareness. The mind, in its natural state, is a relentless engine. It is always moving, planning, remembering, judging, and anticipating. When we try to find peace, we often fight this internal motion, demanding silence where there is only activity. Cultivating inner space is not about silencing the thoughts. It is about changing our relationship with them. Imagine your mind as a vast, open sky. The thoughts, emotions, and memories are the clouds. They drift in, they gather, they pass, and they inevitably move across the expanse. Our goal is not to stop the clouds from appearing, because that is impossible. The goal is simply to realize that we are the sky itself, and the clouds are temporary visitors. When the mind becomes busy, it usually signals a friction between what is happening right now and what we wish was happening. This internal striving creates a mental clutter, a tight knot of effort and anxiety. To cultivate space, we practice creating distance between ourselves and those thoughts. We stop immediately attaching our identity to the narrative running through our heads. This is where the power of gentle observation comes in. Instead of jumping into the story or reacting to the emotion, we learn to simply notice it. When a memory surfaces, perhaps a regret from yesterday, or a worry about tomorrow, we pause. We don't engage with it as if it were an urgent command, but as if we are watching a passing scene unfold on a screen. We recognize that the feeling arises, it exists in this moment, and then gently we allow it to move through us. Think of yourself as the space around the thoughts. You are not the thought itself. You are the quiet, spacious awareness that holds the experience. This is where true stillness resides, in the unshakable presence behind the shifting landscape of the mind. This practice requires patience. There will be moments when the internal activity seems overwhelming, like a sudden rush of water. That is perfectly normal. The resistance is often strongest precisely when we try to force the space into existence. Instead, approach that moment with kindness. Acknowledge the busyness without judgment. Breathe into the tension, allowing the breath itself to become the anchor point in the present moment. Cultivating inner space is an ongoing act of returning. It is the repeated, gentle redirection of attention back to the simple reality of the present moment. When you notice the mind spinning, gently bring your awareness to the sensation of your body, the feeling of the breath entering and leaving the body. This physical anchor pulls us out of the narrative vortex and grounds us firmly in the immediate here and now. Allow yourself the grace of this spaciousness. You do not need to fix or control every thought. You only need to be the calm witness to them. By creating this space, we stop expending energy fighting against internal chaos. We allow the mind its natural flow, knowing that we are safe within the quiet container of our awareness. Rest in this open space. Rest in the simple act of being present, knowing that true peace is not found by eliminating noise, but by finding the stillness that exists behind it all. Let the gentle rhythm of your breath be the guide, and allow yourself to settle into the deep, restorative quiet. We have cultivated this inner space, that open container of awareness, allowing the mind its natural flow without needing to fight it. Now, we arrive at the practice of gentle acceptance. This is not about agreeing with what happened or judging the pain you carry. It is a softer form of witnessing. It is the realization that there is a reality present, a moment unfolding, and our role is simply to allow that reality to be. Imagine your mind as a vast, busy ocean. In earlier stages, we learned how to slow down the waves and recognize the currents of resistance. Now, in this practice of acceptance, we stop trying to dam the water or change the tide. We simply observe the water as it is, acknowledging its movement, its ebb and its flow, without needing to categorize it as good or bad, painful or pleasant. Gentle acceptance is like looking at a cloud passing across the sky. You don't try to stop the cloud from moving. You just see it drift by. The cloud is there. It has shape and movement. We are not trying to control the weather of our emotions, which is impossible, but we can change our relationship with the weather inside us. When difficult thoughts or feelings arise, perhaps a memory surfaces or an old tension flares up, the natural instinct is often to push them away, to label them as wrong, or to immediately try to fix them. This reaction creates friction, adding another layer of stress to the already sensitive system. Gentle acceptance invites us to pause that reactive impulse. Instead of resisting the feeling, we create a small space between the feeling and our immediate reaction. This space is where true stillness resides. It is the gentle acknowledgement, this feeling is here now. This simple observation shifts us from being entangled in the story of suffering to simply being aware of the experience itself. We allow the sadness to be sad, the anxiety to be anxious, without immediately needing to engage with the narrative that demands we solve it right away. Think of a river. The water flows around every stone and obstacle. It doesn't fight the rock. It flows around it. Our emotions are like that water. When we accept them gently, we stop fighting the obstacles within our experience. We allow the emotions to move through us, knowing they are temporary expressions of energy, not permanent definitions of ourself. This practice is deeply grounding. It reminds us that acceptance is not passive resignation. It is an active choice to release the exhausting effort of resistance. It is recognizing the inherent impermanence of all things, that this feeling too will pass, just as every thought and emotion does. By accepting the present moment exactly as it is, we stop expending vital energy on internal battles. When you practice this gentleness, you create a profound sense of safety. You realize that even amidst the noise and the weight of unfinished stories, there is a core of peace that remains untouched by the chaos. This acceptance allows the mind to settle. It transforms the turbulent waters into a calm reflection, allowing the deep, restorative quiet you seek to emerge from the depths. Rest now in this gentle space. Allow the flow of your breath to carry you further into deeper rest, anchored by the simple act of simply being present. We have spent time learning how to release the weight of old stories, understanding that forgiveness is not a gift given to others, but a profound act of self-liberation. We learned how to soften our resistance and allow emotions to flow through us, recognizing their temporary nature. Now we arrive at a deeper space, a place where this gentle acceptance transforms into true stillness. This is the practice of resting in openness. Often, when we talk about peace, we imagine silence, a void, an empty room where all thoughts cease. But true stillness is not the absence of noise. It is the presence of space, even when the mind is busy. The mind is a restless mechanism, constantly creating narratives, planning futures, and reviewing the past. To find rest within this dynamic state is not to stop the activity, but to change our relationship with it. Imagine your mind as a vast, open sky. When we try to force stillness, we create friction, we fight the internal motion, which only generates more noise and anxiety. Resting in openness means allowing that motion to exist without needing to attach ourselves to every passing thought or sensation. It is about creating space between yourself and the turbulence of your experience. This openness allows us to observe our thoughts and feelings not as commands we must obey or obstacles we must overcome, but as clouds drifting across the sky. They appear, they hold their shape for a moment, and then they pass. We simply witness them without judgment, recognizing that they are temporary expressions of energy, passing through the awareness of the present moment. When you allow this spaciousness, you stop expending vital energy on internal battles. You release the exhausting effort of trying to control or fix what is inherently impermanent. Instead of engaging in the mental struggle, the what-ifs and should-haves, you simply anchor yourself in the immediate reality of your body and your breath. Resting in openness is a gentle invitation to inhabit the present moment fully, without carrying the burden of yesterday or fearing the uncertainty of tomorrow. It is recognizing that the peace you seek is not something to be achieved, but something already inherent within the simple act of being present. Think of the water we discussed earlier. When we accept emotions gently, we stop fighting the obstacles within our experience. Now, in this state of openness, we allow those emotional waters to move through us without grasping them or trying to hold them. We are simply the container, vast and calm, allowing the flow. This is not passive resignation. It is an active choice to release the need for resistance, creating a deep sense of safety within ourselves. Let your awareness soften around these flowing thoughts. Notice where the tension usually resides, perhaps in the shoulders, the jaw, or the breath. Gently invite softness into those areas. Allow the mind to settle, not by forcing it silent, but by allowing it to simply be open and receptive. Rest now in this profound space of openness. Let the subtle rhythm of your breath be the anchor that holds you steady. There is nothing left for you to do, nothing left to fix, only the quiet, expansive awareness of your presence. Drift into a deep, restorative sleep, anchored by the simple truth: you are enough and all is as it should be. Sleep well.